Thank you for listening to The Luminous Mind. Remember to subscribe to our free podcast so you won't miss any of our inspiring content. Here is episode 149.
This is sort of my mantra, and I think this is a starting point. It's really, really simple. Okay, you ready? Don't do stuff you hate. Don't do stuff you hate.
Benjamin Franklin once said, "Do not curse the darkness, rather light a candle instead." If you're ready to set your mind on fire, then prepare yourself for the Luminous Mind with your host, Rebecca Bowman.
Today's fire starter is Isaac Morehouse. Isaac is an entrepreneur, thinker, and communicator dedicated to the relentless pursuit of freedom and an advocate for self-directed learning and living. He is the founder and CEO of Praxis, an intensive 9-month program combining a paid apprenticeship at a startup with a personal coaching, professional development projects, and interdisciplinary education that leads directly to a great job and a great career. Welcome, Isaac.
Hey, thank you so much. And trust me, I do some podcasting myself. Bios, somehow they always end up being tongue twisters.
Yeah,
so
no matter how much you practice it beforehand, I
That's
still,
right.
But I like the edit button for those reasons. Anyway,
That's right.
I'm really excited to talk to you and learn more about your mission and exciting things that you're doing with Praxis. But before we get into all that, please tell our audience a little bit more about yourself.
All right. Well, I have 3 children. I've been married for 12 years. I've got an 11-year-old, almost 13 years now. Wow, I just realized that. I've got an 11-year-old son, 6-year-old daughter, and a daughter who's almost 5. And we homeschool them, although it's more like unschooling now. It's gotten more and more free. I grew up homeschooled myself, and I did go to a private high school for 1 year and didn't like it all that much. And kind of my story in a nutshell is, 10 to probably about 12 years of a career journey, constantly trying to figure out how to make the world a freer and better place. And through a lot of different twists and turns, I ended up at entrepreneurship being the best way I know to do that. And specifically launching a company that helps free young people from sort of the conveyor belt, as I like to call it, this idea that they have to follow all these rules and get this education and get this degree and go work in this 9 to 5 and have a life that they don't like. And rather than just complaining about that or saying universities need to change, I decided to just create an alternative and put it out there on the market and try to criticize by creating, if you will. So that's where I'm at today, and Praxis is really what I live and breathe.
Yeah, don't be a complainer about it anymore. Just get out and make a change, right?
That's right. That's right.
That's awesome. So tell us a little bit more about how you feel like entrepreneurship and freedom are kind of connected.
Yeah, this was a long and winding path for me. I never really thought of myself as an entrepreneur. As a kid, I just sort of played Legos and played baseball and kind of just did whatever, and I didn't have any particular career ambitions. And then as I got a little bit older, I just had I think like many young people and teens and early 20s, I just had to get a job that pays enough money. You're sort of at the very bottom rung of that hierarchy of needs, food, shelter, water is what you're worried about. And so I was just kind of thinking about that. And somewhere in my mid to late teens, I started to get really excited about philosophy and especially sort of political theory and the ideas of freedom. And at the time, I primarily thought of freedom in the political context. I'd done a lot of traveling around the world, sort of mission trips and things like that, and seen a lot of very poor places, and came to the conclusion from studying economics and such that it was the lack of freedom that was what caused this poverty and, sort of not the kind of life that I would want for anyone. So I thought we need more freedom in the world, more political freedom. And so naturally I pursued a kind of political and policy oriented path to that for several years. And as I was doing that, 2 things happened. One, I saw sort of how the sausage gets made, what the political process is really like. And it's pretty unbecoming, and it's pretty useless and ineffective, really. I saw that politicians are followers, not leaders. They're going to go where it's safe to go. Once society has already altered sort of the beliefs and norms and what people want, politicians will finally come in at the end of the day and then, pass a law after it's already all but, something that's already happened in society. And so I saw that.
No, they're very reactionary. They're
totally reactionary. And they're risk averse. I mean, they're fundamentally incredibly risk averse. It's all about just making sure you don't tick anyone off. And so just kind of doing what's acceptable, what's within the realm of acceptability. And I wanted to shift that window of political possibility, not just operate inside of it. So, and I also came across on my own economics, but specifically public choice theory, which explains why governments are this way, that you can't just elect better people and hope that they'll do different things. They can't, because it's a whole incentive structure. And so I came to this conclusion sort of through my career and intellectual journey that politics and policy really isn't the way to go. It's more about what people believe. And at first, and I apologize, this is a little bit long-winded, but I'm wrapping it up. At first, I thought of beliefs only as, okay, so ultimately what people believe is the binding constraint on what kind of world they live in and what sort of governments can get away with. I thought of belief only as ideas and arguments that people consciously, explicitly held. And so educating people about this is why free markets work better and this sort of direct, almost evangelistic type efforts was really the only thing that I thought of. Okay, this is how you change beliefs. But I came to realize after doing that for several years that that's actually a smaller percentage of what makes up people's beliefs are their direct ideas. Most people, the things they believe, most of them are not the result of study and reasoned argument. Most of them are the result of experience. And I started to think about all these examples of where experiences were what led to people's beliefs. Once you have tasted something, I mean, this is why communist countries banned blue jeans and jazz music and Marlboro cigarettes in addition to free market textbooks, because they knew that not only taking the ideas about markets could be dangerous to their system, but people experiencing the fruits of freedom would also change their ideas. And even if they didn't understand economic theory, they could say, wait a minute, I tried this and I liked it better. And so I understood that entrepreneurship is this powerful force. Instead of trying to convince people that, the post office is inefficient and we don't need government to run the post office, that's a theoretical argument. Instead, create email and show them an alternative. Create FedEx, show them an alternative. Instead of arguing that higher education, in my case, has all these problems with it, how about I create an alternative and show them and let them experience something better? And so that's where I really had this breakthrough understanding of the power of entrepreneurship as a force for social change and for expanding freedom.
Yeah, I read a thing or maybe listened to something about how, the Russians, I think it was the Russians, tried to create this movie about capitalism and, tried to show different pictures of what America looked like. And it actually backfired on them because they're like, what? They have a car? They have a TV, and it really was. And I've even heard that in North Korea. That's what's changing the hearts and minds of people over there are the movies that are getting, they're not illegal movies, they're kind of coming in. People are seeing what? These people actually have food and they're fat and they're happy and, all of that kind of, I mean, when you're eating grass as they are in North Korea, I guess a good dinner looks, and that's
Absolutely.
that definitely drives the social change more so than maybe President Reagan saying, tear down that wall. It actually all starts from the inside, not.
It's the imagination. Everything starts in the mind at some point. And, if you can't imagine something better, you're not going to fight for it.
Yeah,
if you think this is all there is, and in business, there's all these famous, phrases like Henry Ford saying, if I would have asked consumers what they wanted, they would have said a faster horse. And Steve Jobs saying, people don't always know what they want until you show them because they can't imagine it yet. But that applies to more than just business. That applies to society at large. People don't necessarily know that there is a better way or what more freedom would look like until you sort of build it and show them.
Yeah. Well, in our small businesses in America is really what sets the tone for the freedom economics that we have here.
Yes.
I love economics. We could go on and on. But one of the other questions that I had kind of to relate with this is, I've seen studies that homeschooled kids are more apt to be entrepreneurials. Why do you think that is.
Yeah.
Setting you up there.
Yeah, absolutely. That's wonderful. And that in my experience, anecdotally, is absolutely true. I mean, at Praxis, we get a disproportionate number of the best applicants from homeschoolers and people whose parents are small business owners. Those are, and often they overlap as well, but those are really disproportionately the types of young people that are attracted to and are capable of getting accepted into Praxis. But I think the reason is this, because I don't actually think entrepreneurship is something that can be taught. I don't think you can learn it in a classroom, because by definition, entrepreneurship is doing something in a new way that no one else has thought of yet. Yeah, it's innovation. It's creating.
Inventive.
Yes, exactly. And it's like the thing that nobody thought to teach you in class that you came up with. So you can't be taught entrepreneurship, but it's a trait that all humans have. I mean, this is the way humans learn to talk and walk and ride a bike and swim. It's this trial and error and this kind of, oh, wait a minute. Oh, I could put this with this. Okay, you have these epiphany moments and you're sort of experimenting. It's there. I think school systems tend to really, a lot of rigid structure, it snuffs it out. And it's actually that's actually part of what it's supposed to do. Everybody do the exact same thing. There's one answer. The authority, the expert knows what it is. Everything has already been solved. You just need to ask them what the solution is and repeat it. And that's the opposite of entrepreneurship, but that's what is incentivized in that classroom setting. And I think it starts to snuff it out and you kind of lose that ability. I mean, to get real extreme in a classroom setting, some of the most entrepreneurial things are labeled cheating. The person who's like, wait a minute, there's a faster, better way to give the teacher what they've asked for. Aha, I've innovated. It's like, no. It's not about actually the result. It's about doing the process exactly as I tell you. And that's very opposite of entrepreneurship. So homeschoolers, it's not so much that they've been taught something different. It's that they've been given more freedom and that entrepreneurship hasn't been snuffed out nearly as much.
Yeah. Well, and the freedom actually thrives, makes you want to be a self-directed learner, right? I mean, I think that's probably part and parcel to why the traditional school, you see so many kids that hate learning, that don't like going there, don't like being there, is because they have no freedom.
Yeah,
right?
Absolutely. I mean, humans naturally love to learn. I mean, they're curious. They're upset. I mean, to the point where, little kids, they go through that phase where parents are like, oh my gosh, I wish kids were not so curious and interested in learning everything because they're really annoying. It takes something unnatural being done to stop that. They might not want to learn the things that we think they need to learn. Oh, well, I think you need to learn the names of all the states and you're not learning that on your own. But they need a reason to be interested. They need an intrinsic motivation. They want to learn things that will help them achieve their goals. And kind of just backing off and letting that happen is, I think, much more conducive to entrepreneurial, creative, and fulfilled adults.
Yeah. And until they see a place to apply it, like if you were to travel, then of course they'd be interested in the States.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
Anyway, awesome. Well, I kind of want to hear the inspiration behind your mission. You talked about wanting to be an entrepreneur. I'm sure it had more to do with just wanting to be an entrepreneur. I mean, what's the driving force behind Praxis?
Yeah, absolutely. I would not, I guess this is possible and some people have done it, but I would not typically recommend, starting a business, coming up with a business just because you want to be an entrepreneur and then just, deciding, I'll just figure out a product later. I mean, maybe that works for some people, but I think you have to be totally sold out on your product. So in my case, it started when I was in college, and I remember I worked my way through school. So I would work 2 or 3 days a week and I would cram all my classes into a couple days a week. And I remember paying all this money for parking and textbooks and all this stuff and sitting in classes where the kids didn't want to be there. The other students didn't want to be there. The professors,
you would think they're paying for it. They'd want to be there.
Right. And this is what I realized. They're not paying for the knowledge. They're not the only thing, all the trappings of college, some of them are fun, some of them aren't, whatever. None of those are the thing people are paying for. They're paying for the piece of paper that signals to employers, I am better than somebody without this piece of paper to hire. And there's some truth to that, but the value of that signal is declining rapidly because it means so little. I mean, I remember I had this epiphany This is when it happened. I looked around in class one day and there's this guy, with his head on his desk, another guy talking about how hungover he was, and they were all just sort of tuned out. And I thought, wait a minute, they're all going to graduate with the same degree I have. And, the GPA is probably going to be a couple points different or whatever. But at the end of the day, all I'm buying is a piece of paper that says, I'm roughly as good as that guy. And I thought, well, that's a pretty weak signal.
Well, and they don't even look at the GPA most of the time. So.
No, most of the time they really don't. I mean, so I remember feeling frustrated and thinking all the things I'm learning on the job, and I'm getting paid for that, or things that I'm motivated to learn on my own. And I actually came up with this cheesy little PowerPoint. This was way back 2003 or so, of, what the education revolution, I called it, what a college would look like if it was what I imagined. But I didn't know what to do at the time. I didn't know what to do with that. So I kind of went along my way on my career path. And fast forward to, a decade after that, I had this epiphany. I mean, this sounds really cheesy, but it's true. I went for a walk on the beach. I live in Charleston, so I'm near the beach. And I was just trying to clear my head one day. And I saw the word praxis in my mind's eye. And immediately, this idea, it was like a resurrection of this old idea, but with a whole bunch of stuff that just flooded to me, that what could you do in the shortest amount of time to help young people sort of get from where they are to where they want to be, to get into a career? Because all these businesses I'd been working with, I was doing fundraising at the time and talking with a lot of business owners. They were all saying, I can't find any good people. They all have degrees, but they don't know how to do anything. They're not good employees. I'm hungry for talent. And I'm finding all these college students and graduates saying, I have a degree and I have debt, but I can't get a job anywhere. And I thought, well, something is amiss. So I thought, instead of spending 4 years in the classroom and going into debt to do it, what if you could spend a year and you were apprentice at a company, not like a big company where you're sitting in a cubicle farm with 500 other interns, but like businesses with 5, 10, 20, 30 employees where the founder is still involved and they need good talent. And you're learning that while you're gaining kind of the skills and knowledge that you need to understand how to be a lifelong learner, a self-directed learner. What would that look like? And so I decided, I've got to build this. And I'd had a lot of ideas, but this was the first time that my idea passed the willing to fail test. This was an idea I was so passionate about, I needed to see if it could work. And I would rather try it and fail than not try it at all. Whereas most of my other business ideas were like, yeah, if I knew that would succeed, I would do it, but I'm not willing to fail on it. And this one I was. And so Praxis was born.
Wow. We were kind of talking about this before we started recording about homeschooling kids and how colleges are saying, they're actively recruiting homeschoolers, and how a business person is actively looking for the traits that maybe a homeschooling kid would have. What are the disconnections that most students don't have that maybe, as we talked about before, that this lends itself better to a homeschooling person? What's the traits like that you feel like, that us as parents have prepared in our homeschooled kids that is so sought after by everybody else? What is that?
Yeah, I think independence and problem solving, the ability to be intrinsically motivated. And again, homeschoolers there are some homeschool systems or processes that basically emulate schools and don't have very much freedom or flexibility. And I think that's not as optimal as giving kids more space, but the ability to be motivated by your own curiosity, to solve problems, the social intelligence to know how to interact with adults. Oftentimes kids who have been in school their whole lives, they've only ever really interacted with people that are exact same age or adults who are purely authority figures. And they don't really have the experience of like people of all different age ranges being seen as equals or colleagues or, whatever, bosses or people that they're managing. So that kind of social intelligence. And I think the not needing so much praise and validation. This is a complaint a lot of employers have about millennials in particular. They just constantly need validation and praise for the simplest stuff, or they feel totally lost and they get really depressed. And I think if kids have a lot of independence and they build self-esteem and self-confidence by trying things, there's nothing that beats it. Telling a kid, you're great, you can do anything, that doesn't really help them build self-esteem, especially if they know that, if you say you're great at soccer and they're actually not, they know that and they feel like you're lying to them and they know that there's something like fraudulent there, and it doesn't help build self-esteem. But seeing kids try things repeatedly on their own, like when they learn to ride a bike or play a video game, once they overcome a challenge by themselves, that builds genuine self-esteem. And then they don't need anyone outside to come and say, good job, here's a gold star, because the rewards are inherent in the solution of the problem. And so homeschoolers tend to be better there because they have a lot more freedom and independence to choose what they study, to follow their interests. They don't have someone always grading constantly and always, categorizing them. Oh, you're an honors student, and it's more, a little bit more free and flexible. So I think they're able to solve problems without as much direction and without as much need for positive reinforcement.
Yeah, I saw a study once too that said that homeschoolers are usually more happy with their lives. My kids and I have talked about that everything that they do, there's a celebration. They finish the school year and there's a big celebration. Even the end of the class, there's a bell that rings. And my kids would finish a subject and they just come in, oh, Mom, I finished my English today. But we're excited for them, but there's no big pomp and circus. And I think that when you get out in the real world and there's this drudgery and there's no big celebration at the end of, minor little things, how many times that you brought a baby home and there's, your neighbors are excited, but there's no big party going on,
Yeah.
Anyway. All right. Well, and kind of to go along with that, I know I've heard from other people or about kind of your idea is that as homeschooling parents, we're taking our children out of the system for them to learn all these wonderful skills that we're talking about, but then we congratulate ourselves when we can get them back into college. What is flawed with that thinking, do you think?
Yeah, really, I am not across the board, college is a horrible, bad thing. I would see college the same as a pickup truck. It's a tool. It's kind of expensive. For some people, is probably exactly what they need. If you want to become a doctor or a lawyer, that college degree is legally required. That is a great tool to get you where you want to go. But who would ever say all young people, all 20-year-olds need to buy a pickup truck? Doesn't matter how much it costs. Don't go into debt. Or even worse, I guess we could say, there's a bunch of data that shows people who own sports cars earn more money. Therefore, all young people need to buy a sports car. That's kind of what we do with college. We assume this causation because people who have degrees also earn more money. It's not causation. And we say, well, therefore, everyone should get a degree no matter what. No matter if they're unhappy, if they hate it, if they don't know what they want to do. This is a really expensive way to wander around and try to figure out what you want to do. If you've never worked in a day in the real world, how do you know if you should major in marketing? You don't know what marketing is. You can't experience that reading about it in a textbook. So I think this idea, and homeschoolers, they get it so much hey, I can do things my own off the conveyor belt system that just moves you along from grade to grade and just plops you to the next stage. I want to be more free. I want to go at my own pace, faster or slower. I want to pursue this thing or that thing. They don't realize they still chase after the prestige of college. College still has this prestige thing going for it, which isn't really warranted most of the time. Homeschoolers don't realize they're better than college. The college degree is only valuable. We just had a graduate from our program, and he just blogged about this. Right now, he's about to graduate, and he's got job offers on the table. And as he's looking at all these job offers, he said, nobody cared that I don't have a college degree. Why? Because I have something better. I have this 6-month work experience, and I can show them, here's the website I built. Here's the marketing campaign I sent out. Here's what I did for my business partner. Once I show them that, they never ask about your degree. It's just once you show someone your college degree, do they ask for your high school diploma as well? All they care about is the most valuable signal you have. And if the most valuable thing you have when you're 22 is a college degree, I'm sorry, but that's not all that impressive. A lot of people have that. A lot of people have a degree in extracurriculars. You can build a better signal right now. If you just build a personal website for yourself, that's somewhat impressive. Or if you say, hey, look, I did a social media campaign for my parents' small business and I increased sales by 10%. Here it is. That alone is already more impressive than BA in communications from university, generic university X. So I think people don't realize they have at their disposal the ability to build a better signal already that allows them to bypass the degree. They're already better than college in many ways.
Yeah. Well, and even colleges recognize, if you're an older student going back, sometimes they'll give you, life work experience. They'll give you so many credits for that because they recognize that experience is way more important. So when you're trying to buck the system or fight against this huge machine that we're all told we need, I'm sure you came up against some challenges. What were some challenges that you had along the way trying to get Praxis going, and what do you feel like you've learned from those?
Oh, how long do you have? So probably the first one, big one that sticks out was before we even launched, I was building the curriculum. I mean, bootstrap this whole thing in the beginning, building the whole curriculum experience, working with a lot of people to help put those modules together, building out a network of business partners to be able to place people in these apprenticeships and getting the website built, getting everything going. And I was talking with my brother, who is a phenomenal entrepreneur in his own right and has been really influential on me. And I was ready to throw in the towel. I thought it was all over because I discovered my initial, go ahead. My initial business model was that the program would be zero tuition and they would work for free. The apprenticeship would be unpaid, but the program would be free. So basically they pay nothing and they get this experience and then they get a job afterwards and whatever. And I found out that the labor department has these regulations that it's illegal to work for free.
Boy.
And I was crushed. I was like, my whole model's illegal. And I went into my liberty loving, big government rage. The system is keeping me down. And I called my brother, and he's an accountant background before he started his business. He just started laughing. And I was like, how can you be laughing at a time like this? And he said, I learned something in accounting that there's just always a way around everything, which, that's the kind of accountant you want.
That makes you feel good, huh?
Yeah, exactly. He said, look, this kind of obstacle, this is actually a good thing. This is what's going to keep everybody else from finishing. This is what's going to stop all of your potential competitors. This is what's kept other people from trying to do the same thing. There's always a way around it. You'll figure something out. We can structure it in a different way. And at the time, I hadn't thought of anything, but because I was so overcome with anger, I couldn't think creatively. I was in response mode, reaction mode, instead of creative mode because I was angry. Once he sort of relieved that tension and just laughed at it, yeah, whatever, who cares? I sort of stopped and was like, that's an interesting perspective. And within a couple hours, I figured out a way around it, which actually wasn't that hard. It was participants pay tuition, and then they get paid from their business partner an amount of money that equals tuition. So it's still a net zero cost for them. They're still getting the same apprenticeship experience and everything else. It's just that they're paying us and then the business partner is paying them so that we can abide by all of the laws. It wasn't that hard, but it almost crushed me. Like I was ready to throw in the towel. And I learned a really important lesson there that yes, all these government regulations and red tape and all this other stuff, it all sucks. And I don't want to pretend like it doesn't. I mean, that's the kind of stuff that drives me nuts and often motivates me to try to make a better, freer world. But just being angry at unfreedom is no recipe to create more freedom. Just being upset that, your freedom is restricted in some way is not going to help you.
Exactly like you want to do it type thing.
Yes, exactly. There's always a way to fight around it and get creative if you persist and don't let yourself sort of get depressed by, the first roadblock you run into.
Oh, I love that. Before we go on, let's listen to this message. Recently, the Luminous Mind became an affiliate for EduSense, which offers tremendous discounts on educational supplies. I personally use EduSense to purchase our family supplies because of their great prices, responsive shipping times, and best of all, the chance to earn EduBucks, which I use towards future purchases. Who doesn't love a great deal within a deal? To get a 90% savings on your EduSense materials, go to theluminousmind.net and click on the sponsor page to find the affiliate link. Start using EduSense to illuminate your educational experience. Welcome back to The Luminous Mind with Isaac Morehouse, creator of Praxis, which helps others discover themselves. One of the things I was thinking about, though, is that maybe one of the challenges might be is actually trying to change the paradigm of the business owner, because I'm sure they've also, even though they're frustrated about people that come out of that system not being prepared for them, they also kind of like, well, unless you don't have a degree, you're not a person of value. I mean, has there been challenges like that of trying to change that paradigm
This has been absolutely amazing. I thought that would be a huge and difficult sell. Like, hey, take a chance on these young people. Trust me, I know they don't have a degree, but really, honestly, that has not been very hard at all. Wow. I mean, we have amazing business partners and they're knocking on our door and saying, I need more people. Now, part of that is, with a little bit of traction in the first year or so, we were able to prove that the people that we get are highly vetted. Only about 15%, 20% of applicants get accepted into the program. They have good work ethic. These are good people, and that the program itself helps them become even better. They do a 3-month boot camp before they start their apprenticeship. We do one-on-one coaching with them throughout. So the business partners have some proof and they sort of trust our brand somewhat as well. But the degree thing, there's almost no business partners that have a problem with that. I mean, really what they're looking for is the ability to create value. And if you can prove to them that you can do that in some way, that's what they want. A degree is a weak proof of that. There are other things that are much stronger proof of that. And that's really what we focus on building. So that really has not been a big hurdle, and I expected it to be.
Wow. Okay. Well, that totally changes my mind too. So let's talk a little bit about the services that you offer. I just assumed that, if you put in application, because I saw that you have to submit an application, that there's a cost to the program, all of that kind of things, that you would just accept anyone just because as an entrepreneur, you'd want to take their money.
Yeah. So I want to accept as many.
Services.
Yeah, I want to accept as many people as we possibly can. And I don't want to scare anyone away by, oh my gosh, hardly anybody gets accepted or anything like that. That acceptance rate has actually gone up some because our marketing, we've gotten tighter in targeting the right people. So, a lot of that is you just get a bunch of applications from people who don't seem to know what it is and whatever. You get some of that, but it is an intensive program. So the way it works is, the initial application is pretty quick, and then there's several stages, some interviews and things. And the reason that we're selective is because these business partners that we have relationships with, if we send them someone who's a dud, that relationship is done. They're representing us, and we want people, we're guaranteeing a job with this program. So we need people who are good quality. So if you get accepted in the program, and it's kind of 18 to 25, 26 age range. We've had some people 17 do it. We've had some people 27, 28 do it, but kind of in that range. If you apply and get accepted, then you have a 3-month boot camp where you are building a personal website. You're understanding how to kind of create your own brand and build a digital track record, sort of a digital footprint. And this is essentially, in today's world, Google is your new resume. This is how you can demonstrate what you've done and who you are. And it's much more impressive than a resume with some bullet points about where you went to school, to have a really nice personal website. You also are in this boot camp. This is when you are talking to different business partners and you're sort of being shopped around to some of our business partners and figuring out where your placement's going to be. And that whole process is really educational as well. We help coach you for interviews. A lot of people have never had job interviews, how to do follow-up and all those things. Then you get placed at your business partner for the next 6 months. You are getting paid $15 an hour to apprentice at your business partner. You're having continuing education with Praxis. You have an advisor where you're doing coaching sessions weekly. You've got a series of projects that you're continuing to build to showcase on your website. And at the end of the 9-month program, you walk away with a job offer of a minimum of $40,000 a year. Our alumni, all of them have jobs. The average salary is about $50,000 for our graduates. And it's been incredibly successful. So if you are a young person in that age range, whether you are coming right out of high school and you want to do this instead of college, or you want to take a gap year and say, let me do this first. Let me get a year of work under my belt and then decide if I want to go to college or not, or what I might want to study. If you're in college and you're bored, don't throw good money after bad if you don't want to do it anymore and it's not getting anywhere. You can apply for Praxis then. And even if you're a college graduate, you're on the market, you can't find a good job that you love, you're thinking about grad school. We have all of those categories of people that apply and get into the program. And these apprenticeships are at growing startups. These are really exciting, fast growth companies. So it's not like you're, working at a hot dog stand that's kind of doing the same thing every day. I mean, these tend to be technology companies and sort of sales, marketing, operations type roles. So pretty dynamic and exciting places.
Wow. Well, and I was going to ask you too about the age limit and stuff like that, but it sounds like, they need to be at least a workable age, or at the high school level. Do you feel like too, because I went to college for a certain type of degree, but then when I got out, and I started working in that field, it wasn't like, exactly what I thought it was going to be. I mean, do you ever have situations like that where maybe a student's like, oh, well, I want to be an engineer, but then they get out in that field and they're like, ooh, this isn't what I thought it was going to be. I mean, are you okay with kids kind of pulling out of it? Because I think that would be a big draw, especially like you said, if it's a gap year thing and the kids are trying to figure out what they want to do.
Yes, absolutely. So that's the way that we structured the program is we want the participants who go through it to get exposure to all facets of a business so they actually understand what it all means. It's so odd to me that so many people, they go to school and they spend 4 years studying something and they have no idea if they're going to like it. And again, what you major in usually doesn't actually matter all that much anyway. It's not like getting a business major is going to give you a really specific job, but in some areas it can. I mean, if you're really narrowly focused for law, for example, I know so many people who get a law degree and realize they hate being a lawyer, but they didn't know that ahead of time. So we want people to get out and get experience. And the beauty of working with startups, we're talking about like 5 to 50 employee companies typically. You get to see everything. You see what marketing and sales and operations and product development is like. You understand all the facets. You get to shadow the CEO at least once during the program. You have a self-guided project. So most of our participants are getting roles that are in those sort of non-technical startup roles. We do have some participants who are interested in coding and maybe get some roles like that, but they tend to be more sales, marketing, sort of a right-hand man or woman for a CEO, operations roles. And they get to see a lot of different stuff. And in that role, if it turns out they're really good at one thing, they can do more of that. If they really hate something, they want to do less of that. And so in this 6-month apprenticeship, most of our participants come in and they have no idea. They've never heard of a sales development representative, for example. They wouldn't know whether or not they would like it. They don't know what it is. They go and they work an apprentice in this business, and all of a sudden they realize, you know what I'm really good at? Databases. You know what I'm really good at? Being a sales development rep. And they kind of find that as that first step in their career. So we definitely encourage, we see this as exploration. Like you need to get out and test things before you make a decision that will lock you into something long term.
Oh, that's awesome. So do you have a program kind of set up, like if you have a business partner that wants to come into your, be accepted into your fold of businesses, do you have like, okay, well, we expect you to do this and this and this with them? I mean, do you have something laid out so that they're kind of following a program that gives the student a opportunity to
quality
have that,
experience?
That well-rounded.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we have an onboarding process for our business partners. My colleague Zach does the bulk of our business development work. And so he's traveling around a lot, talking with a lot of great companies. And, we've got sort of a standard, hey, this is what the experience is like. This is the type of person you're going to get. This is how the placement process is going to go. Once they're placed, they're typically in these kind of roles. We want you to work with our advisors ahead of time to lay out what does success look like. We want to make sure they get a chance to have a self-guided project and to shadow the CEO at least once. We're going to be working with them with these coaching sessions and curriculum concurrently with the experience. And so they know what to expect. And we make sure that these are quality businesses. We vet them as well. So it's kind of a two-sided process. We want to find really good businesses, really good people, and we want to match them and make really good matches.
Well, that's awesome. That is great. So tell me a little bit about your business partners then. I mean, you said that most of them are startups or something like that. Do you have a pretty wide variety of different business partners?
We do. We have a surprisingly wide variety, and this is always so interesting to young people. They tend to think in terms of industry and major, which really doesn't make any sense. So I had a participant one time and I said, how would you like to work at a 20-person company that does, $20 million in sales every year with customers from around the world? And, one part of the day you might be working on financial statements. Then you might be helping with a new campaign, advertising, designing an advertisement. Then you might be helping troubleshoot a problem with the product itself. You might get on the phone with a customer from France, and this girl was multilingual, and be trying to solve this. Does that sound fun? And she's like, that sounds awesome. And I said, okay, would you like to work with a company that manufactures a part for cotton gins in Texas? She said, no, that sounds terrible. And I said, well, it's the same company. You don't always know. If you just said industry, like, agricultural manufacturing, that doesn't sound fun to her, but doing, marketing, sales, all these other things, in that case, and that's sort of an unusual field for a business partner, but we have some like that, and you don't always know. So we have a lot of software companies that are doing sort of, business to like selling software as a service to other businesses, places that are doing software solutions for healthcare providers. We have places that are doing accounting and bookkeeping software as a service. But we also have a company that my colleague just met with in Virginia. They produce a unique kind of packaging for direct-to-consumer companies that sell things that need to stay cold. And they're a growing startup with sort of a young team, really interesting place. I mean, it runs the gamut. I mean, we have hundreds of business partners in our network, and they're all across the country. So when you get into the program, we place you with a business partner and you live and work wherever they're located. Some people need to stay in the city that they currently live in, and we can normally accommodate that. But usually the best experience is if you're willing to go anywhere. So some of our current business partners, we've got several participants in Austin, Texas at different companies there. We've got some in Charleston, where I live. We have some in Atlanta. I'm trying to think of what else we have right now that people are currently working in. Pittsburgh. All over the country. I mean, it really is a diverse network, and it's growing all the time. So it's even hard for me to keep up on it. I always have to check in with our business development guy.
Well, and I'm hoping it grows too. I've got a son that's really into medicine, but that would be awesome if he could do something, to know if that's really what he wants to do. And then one that's into engineering, but they're not really sure, like, well, what does that mean and what does that look like? I think that is one of the failures of the traditional school. I do remember coming out of college and, your life is so segmented that you don't realize, like, you're going to be making coffee, but then you're going to also be, managing projects. I mean, there's a lot of that in business that you don't see organically as you would homeschooling.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Great. So let's talk a little bit about mentors and how important they are. I'm kind of thinking that might be part of your paradigm change, is that I feel like you're almost taking it back to the old school of what some of my parents did is they did these apprenticeships. How important do you feel mentoring is, and do you have any mentors that maybe were a significant difference to your success?
Yeah, I think it's hugely important. I think under certain conditions. So I would say this, mentorship is pretty popular, pretty trendy right now. When it's like an officially sanctioned thing, like I'm a mentor, I'm going to be your mentor, I tend to think it doesn't work all that well. When it emerges organically, then it's really, really valuable. So people that you sort of naturally are drawn to and vice versa, those sort of informal mentors, that's where the real value comes, which is pretty cool. With our participants, sometimes, they've got their Praxis advisor that they're doing these coaching sessions with and things, and those are always really productive. But at their apprenticeship itself, it's really interesting, like who ends up acting as a kind of mentor for them. I mean, it could be a colleague, it could be their boss, it could be someone else. It just sort of depends on where that gels. And I think that's hugely, hugely valuable. I mean, for me, my brother has probably been the predominant sort of mentoring influence, even though we, fought all the time growing up and all that typical sibling rivalry.
Hope for parents.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, we fought like cats and dogs, but we're also, really close. And he's been, because he's a couple years ahead of me, and he's been a couple years ahead of me in everything he's done in life as well. He started a business several years before I did. That's been huge to me, to have somebody who's going through or has gone through the exact same things that I am. And entrepreneurship is really lonely sometimes. And having another entrepreneur to say, oh my gosh, we can bounce things off of each other is huge. I also think mentorship is sometimes it's easy to assume that it's got to be somebody like significantly older, significantly more successful. There's a huge value in that sometimes. But I think among peer groups, it's huge. So I've always had this kind of cluster of a half a dozen or so people that I'm really close to that we all kind of push and challenge each other. I've always taken to heart that saying, and I think it's attributed to Jim Rohn. I don't know exactly if he originated it, but that you are the sum of the 5 people you spend the most time around.
Yeah.
And deliberately attempting to spend time around people who make me better, people who have traits that I want to have. That has been huge for me, is just being really deliberate there. So it's not necessarily that there's been like one official mentor in my life, as much as a lot of people that I'm always deliberately trying to be around that I know make me better and that draw out the best in me. And I think just who you're around is so huge, which is another reason that I was frustrated in college. I didn't really feel like the people sitting around me in class were the types that were drawing out the best in me.
Yeah, exactly. And the thing that I think you're giving students or giving these young people is that networking. I mean, that really is missing. Yeah. And in college, that isn't happening because they're all your same age and, they all...
It's a horizontal network.
You're at the same place.
Yeah. My colleague Zach Slayback likes to say it's a horizontal network in college, and you really want a deep vertical network that goes all the way up and down. You know people from all different ages and phases in life and different industries and all those things.
Yeah. I'm really hoping that you're successful at your passion to create this advocacy for self-directed learning and living. Let's talk about maybe advice you'd give students, maybe books that they could read or different habits that they could maybe implement into their life that would kind of help push them in this direction of self-directed learning and apprenticeship or, more of a direct type way of finding their career. What are some books, personal habits, or different things that you think they should be doing to move in that direction?
Yeah, to get off the conveyor belt, that's the key. Get off the conveyor belt is the first step, and then it's like, okay, now what do I do? Now I've got to create my own path. So I'll keep it simple. So you can download my book. I have a free ebook called The Future of School. If you go to thefutureofschool.com, you can download that for free. That's a decent place to start. I think in terms of habits, this is the thing. This is sort of my mantra, and I think this is a starting point. It's really, really simple. Okay, you ready? Don't do stuff you hate. Don't do stuff you hate. Now, if you follow that, it removes all this pressure. How do I find what I love? How do I find my calling? How do I find my passion? How do I pick a career? You can't. I mean, most people can't. There are a very small number of people who know from a young age exactly what they want to do, and they're unwavering, and that's a perfect fit for them. Most of us aren't that fortunate. I didn't know what I'm doing now existed 10 years ago. And what you're going to be doing in 10 years probably doesn't exist yet either. So don't worry about picking what you need to do and trying to plot a perfect path to that. Okay, well, I've got to get this degree and then I've got to get this. And then forget all that. As long as you're not doing something you hate, you're moving in roughly the right direction. So make a list of things you don't enjoy, that are boring, that make you feel dead inside. Don't do those. Every time you try something new, if you realize, okay, I tried this and I really don't like that, add that to the list of things you don't ever want to do and don't do it. And your field will start to narrow, and eventually you'll find yourself developing certain specializations, and you'll find yourself doing something you're passionate about. I mean, this has really been my career path. I've done a lot of things, but I always relentlessly, I'm uncompromising about I don't want to do things I hate doing. And as long as I'm not doing that, I'm all right.
I love that because, earlier in our conversation, you were talking about how when you were angry or whatever, the creative juices weren't flowing. I think some of us get stuck in that. I mean, we start from the time we start kindergarten all the way through of just this drudgery, and the creativity is just blown out of it just because of the negative emotions that we feel. I mean, sometimes we have to recognize that inspiration will come when we're feeling happy, when we're feeling fulfilled, when we're feeling, there's got to be some of those positive emotions, and maybe that's why our society is starting to really downgrade, is that we don't have the happiness that freedom brings.
Yeah, absolutely. You did ask for a book recommendation. I didn't mean to just be like, read my book. That's
I'll direct them there. That's okay.
That's a horrible way to go. I was gonna say you can read there. You can start there. I don't want to give you too many. I could send you a list of like 10 of them. I'm just going to give you one. A great book is called The Education of Millionaires. Really great book in terms of rethinking what really matters when it comes to education and figuring out the things that are truly important. So I would recommend that. I think it's by Michael Ellsberg, The Education of Millionaires.
Oh, that's great. Awesome. Well, I hate to ask this because I think what you're just saying too is that, you're not going to do anything that you don't enjoy. But I was just interested in, what do you think some long-term goals are for yourself and maybe the legacy that you hope to create? And
absolutely. So I'll answer, even though I don't always think this way myself. So I'm actually not very big on long-term goals. I'm much bigger on processes. So I think, okay, I want to improve myself every day. Harness the power of sort of compound
let that inspiration
interest.
come, right?
Yeah, right. Exactly. So as long as I'm improving myself by whatever, 1% every day. So I come up with processes and things that I think will help me do that. Challenges for myself. Like, I write a blog post every day, or I do this for, I try to do these certain things that I think are going to make me better. And if I do that, I'm going to have outcomes that I wouldn't be able to predict ahead of time in terms of long-term goals. So I don't do a lot of long-term goal setting, but in a very general sense, not really specific long-term goals. In a really general sense, my long-term goal, I want to open up new, real options for millions of young people who feel stuck on the conveyor belt and who don't realize that they can live a life that they love where they feel fully alive. It doesn't mean it's an easy life. It's a challenge, but all the best things in life are hard work, are a challenge. I want to create those options and that sense of possibility, and I want to have fun doing it.
Yeah. Well, and the challenge with something you love is fun. It's not, the drudgery that we all get from school. So awesome. Great. But so before we say goodbye, do you have any final parting words of advice for our listeners? And then please give us your contact information so we can get in touch with you.
Absolutely. I think I summed up my parting advice before as don't do stuff you hate, and I would stick with that. Don't do stuff you hate. And if you want to email me and ask me what I mean by that, or throw me all kinds of reasons why you have to do things you hate, I would love to discuss it with you. Isaac
That's
at
what we're told, right?
Yes, exactly. Isaac at discoverpraxis.com is my email. I'm Isaac Morehouse on Twitter, Facebook. You can find me anywhere. And discoverpraxis.com is the website for the company.
Awesome. Great. So again, Isaac's contact information is discoverpraxis.com. However, we will be sure to link all that information up with our website as well. But thanks so much, Isaac, for coming and joining us and helping to light our minds on fire.
Absolutely. It's been a blast, and have a great day.
Thank you for listening to The Luminous Mind. To learn more about Isaac Morehouse, go to our show notes, theluminousmind.net. Be sure to become a subscriber to our free email list and get our new monthly newsletter. Then check out the Services tab to see how we can continue to assist you, our fire starters. Also, to help us continue production of inspiring content, go to the Sponsor tab at theluminousmind.net for more information on sponsorship and affiliate programs. Like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, Google+, Pinterest, and now Instagram. Get our free audio content by subscribing on YouTube, iTunes, and Stitcher. To help us grow, consider these easy ways. Tell your friends about us, leave us a review, share our content, tell us how we can help you so together we can continue to light minds on fire and change the paradigm of education.